What if the air inside your home is more polluted than the air outside? Not near a factory, not in an industrial city. In a regular home with regular furniture, regular cleaning products, and a printer sitting on the desk. The EPA has estimated that indoor air can be 2 to 5 times more polluted than outdoor air, and most people spend 90% of their time breathing it. NASA studied this problem because they needed to solve it for astronauts in sealed space stations. And what they found was that certain common houseplants remove specific toxic compounds from indoor air with measurable efficiency. Today I am walking you through 20 of those plants. Starting with the one that does something no other plant does. It releases oxygen at night instead of during the day, making it the only plant genuinely worth having in a bedroom. And number 4 monitors the quality of your air and tells you when something is wrong, visibly without any equipment. Stick around because number 2 will change how you think about the small white flower sitting in office lobbies everywhere. It is not there because it looks pleasant. Number 1. Snake plant, Sansevieria trifasciata. The only common houseplant that performs crassulacean acid metabolism, absorbing carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen during the night rather than during the day, making it uniquely suited for bedrooms where most plants compete with sleepers for oxygen during the hours that matter most. Most plants follow the standard photosynthesis pattern. They absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen during daylight hours, and reverse this process at night, absorbing oxygen and releasing carbon dioxide. This makes most plants inappropriate for bedrooms. At night, when you want oxygen-enriched air for sleep, a standard plant is actually consuming oxygen and producing carbon dioxide alongside you. Snake plants are different. They use a water-conserving photosynthesis pathway called CAM, crassulacean acid metabolism, which keeps their pores closed during the day to minimize water loss and opens them at night to absorb carbon dioxide. This means snake plants release oxygen during the night, producing the opposite effect of most plants in a bedroom environment. The NASA Clean Air study confirmed that snake plants also remove formaldehyde, benzene, trichloroethylene, and xylene from indoor air, compounds released by furniture, paint, and synthetic materials throughout the home. A plant that requires almost no water, tolerates low light, removes toxic compounds, and oxygenates the room while you sleep represents exactly the kind of functional household addition that looks like decoration but behaves like environmental technology. Number 2 will change how you think about the small white flower sitting in office lobbies and hospital waiting rooms everywhere. It is not there because it looks pleasant. It is there because someone, somewhere, understood what it was actually doing to the air. Number 2. Jasmine, Jasminum species, whose fragrance compound linalool has been studied for anxiolytic effects, with research from Ruhr University Bochum finding that jasmine aroma modulates GABA receptors in a manner comparable to pharmaceutical sedatives, making its scent a genuine neurological intervention rather than simply a pleasant experience. Research published in the Journal of Biological Chemistry found that jasmine fragrance compounds, particularly linalool, interact with GABA receptors in the brain through a mechanism similar to benzodiazepine medications, the class of pharmaceuticals including diazepam and lorazepam used for anxiety and sleep. The researchers described the effect as comparable to valerian and barbiturates in its mechanism. This was not a subjective measurement of people feeling calm. It was a molecular identification of how the fragrance compound was interacting with specific neurological receptors to produce measurable physiological calming effects. The implications for indoor air quality go beyond removing toxins. A jasmine plant flowering near a bedroom or living area is actively releasing compounds that modulate the brain's anxiety and sleep receptors simply through the air. After 50, when sleep often becomes less reliable and anxiety more persistent, having a plant that releases neurologically active compounds into the bedroom air through its fragrance represents exactly the kind of passive, continuous intervention that requires nothing more than placement and watering. The small white flower in the hospital lobby is doing pharmacology. It just does not announce itself. Number 3. Aloe vera, Aloe barbadensis Miller, a natural air quality monitor whose leaves develop brown spots when the concentration of harmful chemicals in the surrounding air becomes elevated, providing a visible biological warning system for indoor air quality that requires no electricity, no sensors, and no technical knowledge to read. Aloe vera is sensitive to the volatile organic compounds that off-gas from furniture, paint, cleaning products, and building materials. When these compounds accumulate to concentrations that represent a meaningful air quality concern, aloe leaves respond by developing brown spots, a visible biological signal that something in the air is worth addressing. This monitoring function was documented in early NASA air quality research and has been confirmed by subsequent investigation of aloe's sensitivity to specific compounds. Beyond its monitoring function, aloe releases oxygen and absorbs carbon dioxide during photosynthesis, contributes to indoor humidity, and the NASA study confirmed its efficiency at removing formaldehyde from air. One of the most common toxic compounds released by pressed wood furniture, carpets, and certain cleaning products. In a typical living room furnished with standard items, formaldehyde concentrations can be measurably elevated, particularly in newer furniture that is still actively off-gassing. A plant that monitors air quality visibly while simultaneously removing the compounds it is monitoring represents a combination of functions that no electronic sensor provides. The plant on the windowsill that most people think of only as a sunburn remedy is also watching the air. Number 4. English ivy, Hedera helix. With research published in the American College of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology journal, finding that English ivy removed 84% of airborne mold spores in a sealed test space within 12 hours, addressing the allergen that occupies more homes invisibly than almost any other. Mold spores are present in virtually every indoor environment. They enter through doors, windows, clothing, and HVAC systems, and once inside, they settle on surfaces and become airborne again with air movement. For the approximately 30% of the population with mold sensitivities, and the much larger proportion who experience respiratory symptoms without ever identifying the cause, airborne mold spores represent a constant, invisible contributor to congestion, coughing, fatigue, and immune activation. English ivy's efficiency at removing airborne mold particles was quantified in a study presented at the American College of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology annual meeting, which found an 84% reduction in airborne mold in a 12-hour test period. The mechanism appears to involve the leaves trapping and holding airborne particles rather than a chemical interaction. English ivy is also on the NASA Clean Air Study list for removal of formaldehyde and benzene. The vine that grows prolifically on European walls and often dismissed as invasive outdoors becomes one of the most efficient biological air filters available indoors, quietly intercepting the invisible allergen burden that passes through most homes without any filtration at all. Number 5. Rosemary, Salvia rosmarinus, whose primary volatile compound, 1,8-cineol, has been studied at the University of Northumbria and found to significantly improve memory performance and alertness simply through inhalation of the plant's natural aroma, making it the indoor plant with the most direct documented effect on cognitive function. A study conducted at the University of Northumbria placed participants in rooms diffused with rosemary essential oil and tested their cognitive performance on a series of memory tasks, comparing results to a control room with no scent. The rosemary room participants showed significantly better performance on speed and accuracy measures, and blood analysis confirmed elevated levels of 1,8-cineol, the primary volatile compound, in their bloodstream, establishing that the compound was being absorbed through inhalation in quantities sufficient to produce measurable cognitive effects. A living rosemary plant continuously releases 1,8-cineol into the surrounding air at concentrations that, while lower than diffused essential oil, are consistent and persistent throughout the hours the plant is in the space. For a home office, a study, or any room where concentration and memory matter, a rosemary plant functions as a continuous passive cognitive support system that requires nothing more than adequate light and occasional watering. The herb most people grow for cooking turns out to be releasing the same compound into the kitchen air, while it grows that made study participants perform significantly better on memory tests. Number 6. Peppermint, Mentha piperita, whose menthol aroma has been studied for its effects on driving alertness, with research finding that peppermint scent reduced driver fatigue and improved reaction time, and whose continuous release of volatile menthol compounds into indoor air provides the same alertness support in any room where concentration and wakefulness matter. Research on peppermint aroma and cognitive alertness has produced consistently interesting results. A study published in the International Journal of Neuroscience found that peppermint aroma reduced fatigue, increased alertness, and improved performance on cognitive tasks. Research on drivers found that peppermint scent helped maintain alertness during monotonous long drives, a context where the effects of scent on arousal are particularly measurable, because the baseline state is consistently fatiguing. The mechanism involves menthol's activation of cold receptors in the nasal passages that signal the nervous system in ways that promote arousal and alertness. A peppermint plant near a desk, in a home office, or in any room where afternoon energy typically dips releases menthol continuously into the surrounding air throughout the day. Unlike a diffuser that requires refilling and active management, a living peppermint plant is a self-renewing source of the compound simply through its natural respiration. It also grows prolifically, can be harvested regularly for culinary use, and grows in containers that sit on windowsills without requiring significant space. The mint family's alertness-promoting properties, used across traditional medicine for centuries, are operating passively in any room where the plant is growing. Number 7. Eucalyptus, Eucalyptus globulus, whose cineole compound, released continuously by the living plant, has documented decongestant and antimicrobial effects through inhalation, with the volatile oils creating a measurable effect on nasal congestion and respiratory comfort simply through proximity to the plant. Eucalyptus essential oil is one of the most widely used respiratory remedies in the world, present in chest rubs, steam inhalation preparations, and cough drops across multiple pharmaceutical and traditional medicine traditions. The active compound is cineole, a monoterpene with documented decongestant effects through relaxation of bronchial smooth muscle and thinning of mucus, alongside antimicrobial activity against several respiratory pathogens. A living eucalyptus plant releases cineole continuously into the surrounding air through the natural volatilization of its essential oils. The concentrations produced by a living plant are lower than a diffuser, but they are constant, present throughout the day without any active preparation. For people who experience chronic congestion, seasonal allergies, or frequent respiratory infections, proximity to a eucalyptus plant creates a persistent low-level exposure to a compound that directly supports respiratory function. Hanging fresh eucalyptus in the shower, where steam accelerates the release of cineole, is a traditional preparation that converts a living plant into a brief but concentrated inhalation treatment. The tree native to Australia that became one of the world's most widely planted species was always doing something specific to the respiratory system of the people who lived near it. Number 8. Peace lily, Spathiphyllum wallacei, one of the top performers in the NASA Clean Air Study for removal of benzene from indoor air, with benzene being a known carcinogen released by laser printers, photocopiers, and tobacco smoke that accumulates in home offices and living rooms without any visible sign of its presence. Benzene is a volatile organic compound classified as a known human carcinogen by the International Agency for Research on Cancer. It is released by laser printers and photocopiers during operation, a fact that most people who work from home have never been told. It is present in tobacco smoke, vehicle exhaust that enters through ventilation, and some cleaning products. In enclosed spaces with limited ventilation, benzene concentrations can accumulate to levels that represent genuine long-term exposure concern with regular daily use of printers and copiers. The peace lily was identified in the NASA Clean Air Study as one of the most effective plants for benzene removal, alongside its documented efficiency at removing formaldehyde, trichloroethylene, and ammonia. It is also one of the few flowering plants that thrives in low-light conditions, making it genuinely practical for the interior rooms and offices where printers are most commonly placed and where natural light is often limited. The elegant white-spathed plant in the corner of every office lobby is quietly working on the benzene that the printer on the desk produces every time someone prints a document. Most people in those offices never make the connection. If these plants are changing how you think about the space you live in, there is a complete practical guide in the first pinned comment below for anyone who wants to go further than just growing them for air quality. A step-by-step system for cultivating, preparing, and using medicinal plants at home. The plants that work both in your environment and in your body. Link is pinned below. Number 9. Boston fern, Nephrolepis exaltata, identified as the most efficient natural humidifier among common houseplants, releasing more moisture into the air than any comparable indoor plant, addressing the indoor dryness that heating and air conditioning create, and that contributes to dry skin, respiratory irritation, and increased susceptibility to airborne viruses. Forced air heating and air conditioning systems dry indoor air significantly. Winter heating in particular can reduce indoor humidity to levels well below the 30 to 50% range that most human physiology functions best within. Dry air desiccates the mucous membranes that line the respiratory tract and serve as the primary physical barrier against inhaled pathogens. When these membranes dry out, their barrier function is compromised, increasing susceptibility to respiratory infections. The World Health Organization has noted the relationship between indoor humidity and respiratory health. Boston ferns release water through transpiration at a rate that measurably increases humidity in rooms where they are placed. Research has found that a single large Boston fern can release significant quantities of moisture per day. Unlike mechanical humidifiers, a Boston fern requires no electricity, produces no white mineral dust, does not need to be cleaned to prevent mold growth in its reservoir, and simultaneously filters airborne particles through its dense foliage. The fern that hangs in Victorian-era paintings of parlors and drawing rooms was providing genuine humidity management in homes heated by dry coal fires, a functional role that the people who placed them there may have understood better than the decorative tradition that followed gave them credit for. Number 10. Lavender, Lavandula angustifolia. With clinical research confirming that lavender aroma improves sleep quality, reduces anxiety, and lowers heart rate through linalool's documented modulation of the parasympathetic nervous system, making it the indoor plant with the strongest clinical evidence for a direct effect on sleep in a bedroom environment. The clinical evidence for lavender's sleep effects is among the strongest in botanical sleep research. Multiple randomized controlled trials have found that exposure to lavender aroma significantly improves sleep quality, reduces nighttime awakening, and increases the proportion of deep sleep in both healthy adults and populations with documented sleep difficulties. A study published in the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine found that college students exposed to lavender aroma had significantly better sleep quality and felt more refreshed on waking. Research has confirmed that linalool, the primary volatile compound, modulates the parasympathetic nervous system, the branch responsible for the rest and digest state that healthy sleep requires. A lavender plant in the bedroom continuously releases linalool into the air throughout the night. The concentration produced by a living plant is lower than a diffuser, but the exposure is continuous rather than limited to the duration of an oil's evaporation. For the significant proportion of people over 50 whose sleep architecture has changed, lighter sleep, more frequent waking, less time in restorative deep sleep. A lavender plant represents a passive, continuous neurological intervention that requires nothing more than a pot and occasional watering. Number 11. Bamboo palm, Chamaedorea sifritzi, one of the top-rated plants in the NASA Clean Air Study for removal of trichloroethylene, a compound that most people have never heard of despite having it brought directly into their homes regularly via dry-cleaned clothing and certain adhesive products. Trichloroethylene is an industrial solvent with a classification as a probable human carcinogen and documented neurological effects at elevated exposure levels. Most people are unaware that it is commonly present in clothing returned from dry cleaning. The dry cleaning process uses, or historically has used, trichloroethylene and related solvents, and residual amounts off-gas from clothing in closed wardrobes in bedrooms. It is also present in certain adhesives, paint removers, and typewriter correction fluids. In enclosed bedrooms where dry-cleaned clothing is stored, trichloroethylene can accumulate in enclosed wardrobe spaces and diffuse into room air. The bamboo palm was identified in the NASA Clean Air Study as one of the most efficient plants for trichloroethylene removal, absorbing the compound through leaf surfaces and processing it through root zone microorganisms. It is also one of the better natural humidifiers among indoor palms. The elegant tropical palm that most people choose for its appearance is quietly addressing a compound that arrived in the room inside the plastic bag from the dry cleaner. Number 12. Spider plant, Chlorophytum comosum, one of the original plants in NASA's Clean Air Study. With a subsequent University of Hawaii study, finding spider plants removed 96% of carbon monoxide from a sealed test chamber in 24 hours, addressing the odorless gas that low-level exposure from gas appliances and attached garages introduces into homes continuously. Carbon monoxide requires no introduction as a danger at high levels. It is the colorless, odorless gas that detectors are mandatory in most homes to identify. What is less understood is that low-level, chronic carbon monoxide exposure from gas stoves, furnaces, water heaters, and attached garages produces measurable effects on cognitive function, fatigue, and headache that are regularly misattributed to other causes. Carbon monoxide detectors are calibrated to alarm at concentrations representing acute danger. They do not signal the lower chronic exposure levels that affect cognitive function and contribute to persistent fatigue. The University of Hawaii study found that spider plants removed 96% of carbon monoxide from a sealed test chamber in 24 hours, an efficiency that suggests meaningful practical impact even in non-sealed home environments. Spider plants are also among the most prolific and low-maintenance houseplants available, producing trailing offshoots called spiderets that can be rooted and propagated endlessly from a single parent plant. The hanging plant in every kitchen window for the last several decades was not there purely for aesthetics. It was doing something to the air that kitchen appliances were continuously affecting. Number 13. Valerian, Valeriana officinalis, whose valerianic acid and isovaleric acid volatile compounds, released by the living plant, have documented sedative effects through GABA receptor modulation, with the plant's aroma having been used in sachets and sleep preparations across Europe for centuries as a natural sleep aid. Most people know valerian as a supplement taken internally for sleep, the dried root in capsule form that has documented anxiolytic and sedative effects through GABA receptor modulation. Less known is that the same active compounds are present in volatile form in the living plant, and that the traditional European use of valerian for sleep involved the aroma as much as internal consumption. Valerian sachets placed near beds, fresh valerian in rooms, and valerian preparations used as aromatic sleep aids appear throughout centuries of European folk medicine, particularly in the Germanic and Scandinavian traditions. The British government distributed valerian during the Second World War, specifically for anxiety management under civilian bombardment, reflecting its reputation as the most reliable botanical anxiolytic available. A flowering valerian plant in a bedroom releases valerianic acid and related volatile compounds continuously into the surrounding air. The concentration is lower than a diffuser or an internal dose, but the exposure is consistent throughout sleeping hours. For people who struggle with the transition to sleep or with anxious wakefulness during the night, a valerian plant in the bedroom represents a continuous, passive delivery of the compound that pharmaceutical anxiety medications target through the same receptor system. Number 14. Pothos, Epipremnum aureum, identified in multiple studies as one of the most efficient plants per square meter for removing volatile organic compounds from indoor air, including formaldehyde, benzene, and xylene, with research finding it outperforms many larger plants in air cleaning efficiency due to the high surface area of its leaves relative to its size. Volatile organic compounds, VOCs, are a broad category of carbon-based chemicals that evaporate at room temperature and are present in virtually every modern home interior. They are released by furniture, flooring, paint, cleaning products, personal care products, and building materials. Long-term exposure to mixed VOC environments has been associated with respiratory symptoms, headache, fatigue, and in the case of specific compounds like benzene and formaldehyde, documented health risks at higher concentrations. Pothos has been found in multiple studies to be remarkably efficient at removing VOCs per square meter of leaf area, outperforming many larger, more impressive-looking plants because of its particular combination of leaf surface area, transpiration rate, and the root zone microorganism community that processes absorbed compounds. It grows in virtually any light condition, including very low light, requires minimal watering, is extremely difficult to kill through neglect, and trails naturally from shelves and hanging baskets in ways that maximize its total leaf surface area within a room. The ubiquitous trailing green plant in every office and apartment is, surface area for surface area, one of the hardest working air cleaning plants available. Number 15. Chrysanthemum morifolium, identified in the NASA Clean Air Study as the most effective plant for removing ammonia from indoor air, addressing the compound released by cleaning products, hair dye, and certain fertilizers that is one of the most common but least discussed indoor air pollutants. ammonia is released by a surprisingly wide range of common household products: multi-surface cleaners, glass cleaners, floor waxes, smelling salts, hair dye, and certain fertilizers used in indoor plants. In enclosed rooms with limited ventilation after cleaning, ammonia concentrations can reach levels that irritate the respiratory mucosa, eyes, and skin. Effects that are typically attributed to the cleaning itself rather than to the lingering chemical in the air. The NASA Clean Air Study ranked chrysanthemums as the top performer for ammonia removal among all tested plants. The mechanism involves absorption of ammonia through leaf surfaces and processing through the root zone microorganism community, the same general mechanism responsible for most plant air cleaning effects. Chrysanthemums require bright light to flower and are somewhat more demanding than the easiest plants on this list, but their efficiency at the specific compound, most commonly released by household cleaning products, combined with their visual appeal when in bloom, makes them one of the most functionally targeted choices for kitchens and bathrooms where cleaning products are most frequently used. Number 16. Rubber plant, Ficus elastica, with some of the largest leaves of any common houseplant, providing maximum surface area for formaldehyde absorption and for the particle filtration that physical interception of airborne dust and allergens provides, alongside documented efficiency at formaldehyde removal in the NASA research database. Formaldehyde is released by pressed wood products, particle board, MDF, plywood, that form the structural basis of most flat-pack and affordable furniture. It is also present in permanent press fabric treatments, certain insulation materials, and some adhesives. Off-gassing is highest in new furniture and declines over time, but in a typical furnished room, background formaldehyde is often measurably present. The NASA Clean Air Study confirmed rubber plants as effective formaldehyde removers. The large glossy leaves provide exceptional surface area relative to the plant's footprint. One rubber plant occupies perhaps 30 centimeters of floor space while presenting a large total leaf area to the surrounding air. Larger leaves also provide more surface for the physical filtration of airborne particles that all leafy plants contribute through simple interception. Dust, pollen, and fine particles settle on leaf surfaces rather than remaining airborne where they would otherwise be inhaled. The substantial-looking plant that has furnished living rooms and offices for generations was always providing more than visual weight to the space. Number 17. Areca palm, Dipsis lutescens, recommended by the World Health Organization for indoor use specifically for its ability to increase humidity in dry indoor environments, with research by Indian botanist Kamal Miatal, finding that a specific combination, including areca palms, measurably improved indoor air quality and reduced health complaints in office workers. Kamal Miatal's research in New Delhi investigated whether plants could create measurably healthier air in office buildings with poor air quality. His findings, presented at a TED conference, identified areca palm as a central component of an effective indoor air quality system, specifically for its exceptional humidity contribution. Miatal's research found that office workers in plant-enriched environments reported significantly fewer symptoms, including headache, eye irritation, respiratory problems, and fatigue compared to a control building. The World Health Organization's recognition of areca palms for indoor air quality in low-resource settings, where mechanical air purification is not available, reflects a practical acknowledgement of their documented contribution. Areca palms are among the more demanding plants on this list in terms of light and moisture requirements, but their humidity contribution makes them one of the more impactful in dry climates or heavily heated winter interiors, where respiratory health is most affected by the drying of indoor air. Number 18. Dracæna, Dracæna marginata and related species, identified in the NASA Clean Air Study as particularly effective at removing xylene and toluene from indoor air, compounds released by vehicle traffic that enters homes through ventilation and that paint, varnish, and permanent markers released directly inside. Xylene and toluene are aromatic hydrocarbons used as solvents in paints, varnishes, adhesives, and cleaning agents. They are also components of vehicle exhaust and enter buildings through ventilation systems in urban environments. In homes near busy roads or where recent painting, varnishing, or renovation has occurred, xylene and toluene concentrations can be meaningfully elevated. Short-term exposure produces headache, dizziness, and nausea, symptoms that are often attributed to the smell of fresh paint, but that persists as the smell fades while the compound concentration remains elevated. Dracaena species were among the NASA Clean Air Study's stronger performers for xylene removal. They are also among the most tolerant of low-light, irregular watering, and the kind of neglect that characterizes most indoor plant care. The architectural-looking plant with narrow leaves striped in red, green, or yellow that decorates shopping centers and offices tolerates the exact conditions where it is most needed. Low light, irregular care, and air that contains the compounds its hosts are continuously releasing without knowing it. Number 19. Chinese evergreen, a Glionema species, consistently ranked among the most effective air-cleaning plants in studies examining real-world conditions rather than sealed chambers. One of the limitations of the original NASA Clean Air Study is that it was conducted in sealed test chambers under controlled conditions that do not fully represent real home environments. Subsequent research has examined plant air cleaning performance in more realistic conditions. Variable airflow, typical household humidity, ambient temperature fluctuation, and the lower light levels of real interior spaces. Chinese evergreen consistently performs well in these more realistic conditions because it is physiologically adapted to low-light, variable environments. It grows naturally on the forest floor where light is limited and conditions vary. This means its air cleaning activity continues consistently in the kinds of rooms where most indoor plants struggle. North-facing rooms, interior spaces without windows, offices without natural light. For a bedroom, a hallway, or an interior room where most plants would decline and stop functioning, Chinese evergreen continues removing benzene, formaldehyde, and other VOCs through conditions that would reduce most other plants on this list to passive decoration. Number 20. Anthuriums. Anthurium andryanum. Among the most efficient houseplants for ammonia removal, flowering continuously for months rather than weeks, thriving in the same low-light conditions where air quality concerns are highest, and closing this list with a question worth considering. How many of the symptoms we attribute to stress, fatigue, or just a difficult week are actually the air we have been breathing in the spaces where we spend 90% of our time? Anthuriums are flowering plants that, unlike most flowering houseplants, bloom continuously for extended periods, individual flowers lasting for months rather than the weeks typical of most flowering species. Their documented efficiency at ammonia removal addresses the same cleaning product compounds that chrysanthemums target, providing ongoing coverage in bathrooms and kitchens where both ammonia exposure and continuous bloom would be most appreciated. But anthuriums close this list because they represent the larger question that all 20 plants together raise. The Environmental Protection Agency's estimate that indoor air can be 2 to 5 times more polluted than outdoor air, and in some cases 100 times worse, sits behind every headache attributed to screen time, every afternoon fatigue attributed to a bad night's sleep, every respiratory symptom attributed to a seasonal change. Some of those symptoms have a different explanation. The furniture is off-gassing, the cleaning products left compounds in the air, the printer released benzene this morning, and 20 plants, placed thoughtfully through a home, are doing something about all of it. Continuously, passively, without filters to replace or electricity to consume. They have been doing it since before anyone had a word for volatile organic compounds. They will keep doing it as long as they are watered. 20 plants, each one addressing a specific aspect of indoor air quality, sleep, cognitive function, or the invisible chemical environment that modern homes create without most people realizing it. The research is real. The NASA Clean Air Study began it. Subsequent investigation has confirmed and extended it. The plants are available at any garden center, most grocery stores, and online. The question is not whether they work. The question is how long the air in your home has been working against you without anything in it working back. Hit the like button if this changed how you see the plants in your home. Drop a comment and tell me which plant surprised you most, or which one you are adding first. Subscribe and ring the bell. I will see you in the next one.